I love sports. Before I started religiously watching Vines, it was my entire personality. As a kid, I was on the boys' soccer team because in early 2000 Seoul, girls didn't play sports. When I turned 10, I moved to California and played every sport known to man. And then junior year of high school happened. August was the tryouts period for the school soccer team, and I was now a returning upperclassman. Everything was going fine until somebody stepped on my toe in a scrimmage. I got a minor bruise, so I sat out for a few days waiting for it to heal. A week later, when I came back, the head coach demanded I get a doctor's note, but I couldn't just drop $500 to prove my bruise was gone, so I quit soccer and moved to the track team. Track wasn't a good fit for me, but there was a silver lining. The track team at my school was the only sports team that regularly lifted, and I loved it. Less than a month in, I was lifting more than I ran. I showed up just so I could lift until I had a very big brain moment. I can quit track, so that's exactly what I did. I became a gym rat. But not just any gym rat. My two favorite lifts that I picked up from track were bench and cleans. Benching is an event in powerlifting, while cleans are a component of Olympic weightlifting. Powerlifting is boring, so I chose weightlifting. So through junior year and the summer that followed, I spent every loose minute of my life watching weightlifting videos and sneaking into the gym to lift. By the summer before senior year, I put on 45 pounds to my total from my 85-pound snatch and my 125-pound clean and jerk I started out with. In August, a month before the start of my senior year, Coach Tori, the school strength and conditioning coach, told me about a local weightlifting meet. I'd never considered doing the sport competitively, so I didn't jump at the opportunity, but then I got seduced by that IWF bar and convinced my dad to support my weightlifting aspirations. The catch was my dad works in Korea while the rest of my family lives in America, so he couldn't drive me to the competition. We also couldn't make it obvious to my mom that I was doing this because she would never hear the end of it. So I devised a plan. I didn't have any lifting gear, so I ordered shoes, a belt, and knee sleeves online. I couldn't ship it to my house because my mom would be notified of the deliveries, so I shipped it to a friend's house on the other side of town and biked over to get it. On the day of the competition, I told my mom there was an orientation happening for a peer group, which was true, but that was actually on the next weekend. I biked to school, left my bike there, and rode an Uber to the competition that my dad called from Korea. Local weightlifting competitions are super chill, but I wasn't. I was really nervous because I was in a place I'd never been before with people I'd never met before, competing in a sport I randomly picked up less than a year ago. I had no idea when I was supposed to lift, so I started lifting way too early and got yelled at by this guy. That's Coach Rouge. He's a friend of Coach Tori, and he was the person hosting the meet. I didn't know him then, but I was scared enough to leave the bar alone and make some friends instead. The meet went by smoothly and I got back home without getting kidnapped. 4 months later in December, I'd kept in touch with everyone I met at the meet, including Rouge, and he casually dropped this message: "You'll be at Nationals next year." Now, at this point, I had no idea how the sport worked. I fully thought he was messing with me. But for those of you who aren't familiar with how the sport of weightlifting works competition-wise, here's a quick rundown. There's two lifts in weightlifting, the snatch and the clean and jerk. For each lift, lifters get 3 attempts, thus a total of 6 lifts. The highest numbers from each lift are added up to make the total, based on which athletes are ranked. The sport is divided by body weight, gender, and age, so rankings exist essentially only within your category. For example, my category is Junior W55, which means I'm a female weightlifter weighing under 55 kilograms, aged between 18 and 20. Since the sport is numerical, qualification is also clear-cut. To qualify for events, for example, the American Open or Nationals, or to make the Olympic team, you need to lift the qualifying total at the appropriate USA weightlifting sanctioned meet. The qualifying total to meet for me was 117 kilograms. My record at the time was 53 kilos and 67 kilos in the snatch and clean and jerk respectively, just a few kilos over the qualifying total. If I could hit it consistently, I had a chance of qualifying. But I was in the middle of applying for colleges and a few months away from graduating. Sports was the least of my worries, so I pushed it off, lifting intermittently when I felt like it. And then in the beginning of May, Rouge randomly texted me this: "Weird for a weekday, but last shot if you think you can make it work." I was in the middle of AP exams and a month away from graduation, but things had also settled down. So I decided to commit. I had no idea how I would get to Pittsburgh, how I would prepare for nationals in barely a month, or even how I would get myself out to the last chance qualifier in Freehold on a school day. But I knew I wanted to do it, so I jumped without looking. My friends group is rather peculiar. 2 of us can drive, all of us are in college except me, and our majors are all over the place. By the week of the qualifying meet, I was the only person who was still in school, and miraculously, one of my friends volunteered to drive me 40 minutes to Freehold, and 2 others volunteered to be my cheering squad. Once again, we staged a covert mission to operate under my mom's nose. My dad signed me out from school at 9 in the morning over a voice call, which sent my principal down a confusion spiral, and I was off with my 3 friends on a non-school sanctioned field trip. Coach Tori took a day off from school to come support me, and Coach Rooch came to charity coach me. I somehow made the qualifying total and registered for Nationals on the last day of the registration window. Nationals was exactly 1 month away, and I needed 2 things: a coach and money. I had no idea how I would fund my trip out to Pittsburgh, so I started a GoFundMe. And Rooch became my foster coach. He programmed for me and coached me remotely over the month leading up to the competition. Everything was finally coming together. And then just as things were starting to look up for me, I started to notice my right shoulder tightening up. A week after that, I couldn't raise my arm up without pain. I had no idea what had happened or how to fix it. Scared, I called a PT I knew in Korea who told me, "I suspect impingement. Lifting again before you fix it is not ideal." I had no idea what to do. 2 people had donated to my charity. Rooch already had taken me off the streets, and the school newspaper already interviewed me. I couldn't just declare injury and disappear into obscurity. So I did rehab exercises I found online and waited until 2 weeks later the pain just magically disappeared. I genuinely do not know what happened to this day, but I didn't have time to think about it then. I'd already lost the insanely short amount of time I had left to train, so I had to really focus now. Every day after school, I lifted, and when graduation week came around and the school gym closed, I found other gyms to lift at, using the wrong bar but still getting the lift in. While that was happening, my charity strategy wasn't quite working, so I decided it's time to do what I do best: talking to strangers. To every adult I ran into at school, I talked about my charity, until after a few more donations, the school science supervisor told me to email the Paul Robeson House of Princeton. I did, not knowing what to expect, but then I got an email from GoFundMe a few hours later that my fundraising goal had been met. The checklist was now complete. Transportation, check. Hotel, check. Coach, check. Training, check. All that was left was to make it out to Pittsburgh. Now for the fun story of travel mishaps. My session was in the morning of Tuesday, so I had to leave for Pittsburgh on Monday morning. I nearly missed the train to Philadelphia 30th, but made it on, found my way to Philadelphia airport, and got to the ticketing desk all 2 hours before my flight, just so the lady at the front desk could tell me that my flight was cancelled. What? I'm not Taylor Swift. I can't just call up my personal jet in the case of an airline industry scamming me. There's no customer service at an airport, so I had to find the next best people to talk to, the guys who work to provide wheelchair services for senior citizens. They told me to find the next flight to Pittsburgh and book it on the spot. On the TV, there was one other flight I could get on, so I booked it on the spot and ran to the gate. I made it and also waited for 3 hours to get on the plane. Once I finally got to Pittsburgh Airport, I took the bus to downtown Pittsburgh. The bus crew was almost as diverse as my friend group. 2 Vietnamese men from Austin going to a college reunion, a Russian grandma, a buff white guy with a buzz cut, a black guy in a humongous blue poncho. It was raining really hard. A young man with a neck tattoo, a bike, and groceries, and less interesting people in the back. The bus driver didn't know what station I should get off at, but the poncho man did, and I made it to the convention center just in time to get my name tag, see the venue, and figure out where I needed to go in the morning to weigh in. After all that, I got some food at a locally recommended ramen place and went to bed. On competition day, I woke up at 6:30, got a very American breakfast, ate a protein bar, packed my lifting gear, and walked over to the convention center to weigh in. I made weight, met Coach Rooch, who had come straight from his morning flight to the venue, and started warming up. While I was waiting in the line of competitors to go wave at the crowd on the stage, Alex Lee randomly walked up to me to ask if I'm Korean. I was so disoriented that I didn't realize it was him until the middle of the competition, but he asked if I was born here, which turned out to be important later on. Given that I hadn't gotten to touch a barbell in 4 days, I did okay. I avoided bombing out by a very slim margin, making one attempt successfully in each lift. It turned out that because I'm not a citizen, I'm quote exempt and don't get a ranking on the leaderboard. But I hadn't come to get a number next to my name, so I wasn't upset about it. What was more exciting to me was that after I competed, I got lunch with coach and got to lift in the training hall with these wonderful people. I finally got to be coached in person and lift on the platform. I spent my last hour and a half in Pittsburgh lifting before I had to catch the bus again. I'd never seen so many weightlifters in one place. The last 2 months have been a blur. I found myself in situations I never thought I'd find myself in. So many things went wrong, but so many people pulled through for me, supported me, and encouraged me. I found community in the sport I'd initially liked for its individuality, and realized that getting myself out there can really be the first step to finding support in ways I never expected. When I walked into the high school weight room for the first time for track, I never could have guessed that this would be the journey I was embarking on, but I'm so glad and grateful that it happened, and for the people who made this possible for me. Special thanks to Mom for still letting me do this and packing me breakfast, Dad for giving me a chance to try, Coach Tori for being my day one, Doug for being my first gym bro, Coach Rooch for adopting me as your foster athlete, Silas for the creatine, Becca for being my first Patreon, Ms. Foreman for shooting a school-wide email about my charity, Mr. Pembleton for surfing kayak with me, Mr. Rodriguez for always checking in on me, Dr. BJ for telling me about mini grants, Dr. Wiggins for your grant and additional donation, Subber for all the car rides at all the ungodly hours, Miss Bijoni for the lucky number. Additional thanks to the charity donors, Doreen Torrey, Christine Carbone, Carol Kinge, Judy Buckley, Giselle North, and Jason Marks.